Welcome to the Evolved Man, where we are at war with the mediocrity of modern man. The Evolved Man is for men like you who are willing to be open, vulnerable, and aggressive learners. Men who are not afraid to disrupt and change. It's time we ditch the current conventional idea that we devolve with age, that the dad bod is our destiny, and that the glory days are behind us. Your best isn't behind you, and I'm here to provide you with practical tools, a few tips and tricks, and everyday wisdom to help you evolve into your highest form. Strong, lean, smart, educated, and emotionally intelligent. Now, let's go to war. Welcome back. I'm glad we are finally getting some time to spend together after a hiatus. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you've noticed we took some time off. 2024 was a whirlwind year. From one daughter getting married to another going to France for a study abroad to a son graduating high school, we had a pretty packed calendar. Oh, and did I mention we redesigned the backyard so that we could host some of the wedding events? Yeah. We also tried to pack in a family vacation in there as well. To say the least, 2024 was busy. And so the one thing that had to give for a period of time was the podcast. We also wrapped up and launched our first ever nutrition course, 16 Weeks to Never Dieting Again. Now, this course has several videos, worksheets that walk you through step by step how to develop the skills you need to never be on a diet again. It's been a blast to watch people go through this course and see how they're changing the way that they live and interact with food. That, combined with a new job for my wife and the growth of our business, led me to putting the podcast on hold until early 2025. So, if you're returning, thanks for coming back. If you're new here, thanks for coming to hang out. This episode is episode 178, the only scientifically proven diet strategy. Today in the cover story, I'll be breaking down the only way you're going to get to your goal and live at a weight and a body fat that you want. And look, I know you've heard that before by everyone pushing the new diet to the new poke pill or powder. And just trust me here. I'm not going to tell you how to cut out your favorite foods, what supplements you need to waste your money on, or what crazy diet you need to follow. What I am going to cover today is how to figure out how you are wired to interact with food and how to determine what strategy is right for you. You see, if you don't understand your thoughts, emotions, and social life, think work, life, family, friends, etc., and how they affect your food and your food choices, your lifestyle habits, etc., you're never going to get long-term results. In the Evolved Man section, I'm going to introduce you to my client and friend Scott, who at 56 years old is lighter, leaner, and stronger than he ever has been. Scott's story of going from frustration to figuring out how to be free of diets and put pain behind him is a tale that's both instructional and inspiring. In Ever Evolving, I'm going to walk you through some of my recent experiments and what I'm working on right now. As I've said many times before, the Evolved Man is not me, it's you. I'm just a guy on a path to ever evolving, and I want to share with you some interesting insights into how I'm taking my health and fitness journey. And as I look down the barrel of 50 in about a year and a half, what does that look like, and what am I testing and trying right now? I'm also inviting you to join me on a journey with two challenges that my clients and I are taking this year. In evidence-based, I'm going to break down a simple process for you to improve your sleep and why you don't need to be a Huberman bro with a sleep protocol that is so long and involved it feels like it's another part-time job. Hey, before we go any further, can I ask a favor? We grow faster through shares of our content than through paid ads. So subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and share this episode with someone you think would benefit from it. I get messages regularly from friends of the podcast who tell me that they've shared it with their spouse, their kids, or their friends, and it's helping them significantly. As you know, I'm on a mission to help transform millions of lives, and I can't do it without your help. So subscribe and share, and let's go on this journey of evolving together. It's pretty common in our society to have the following things become normal as you get older. Increased body fat percentage, nagging injuries and joint issues, food intolerances and gut issues, feeling tired, frustrated, and just overall low energy. While chronological age does impact us, many of the ravages of age can be slowed or stopped or even reversed. Empirically, we don't know of an age when a person can't get stronger. In fact, I've had clients who have improved strength into their 90s. Yes, we can and do lose muscle mass throughout life, but what we call sarcopenia, or the loss of muscle tissue, isn't guaranteed until we reach about our 70s. Any muscle loss prior to that time is due to lifestyle factors and poor nutrition. A healthy diet, proper strength training, and appropriate recovery can help us keep and build muscle well into later life. And when my client Scott came to me, he was a perceivably fit guy, albeit slightly overweight from his perspective. He ran, played, and refereed soccer and accomplished several great physical challenges, including doing distance rides on his bike, road races, and many running races as well. But in his mid-50s, he was struggling with excess body fat and nagging pain. Scott, like many people, was conscious of what he was eating and was working out already. But his hip, back, knee, shoulder, and other joint pain would frequently sideline him. When we started working together, we mapped out a plan that would take him through. The first phase was about getting him out of pain. Once we were able to address key issues that were leading to the nagging pain, we focused on building strength. Most of my clients come to me wanting to lose weight, but there are typically two hurdles that we have to overcome before we get them to lose the weight. First, we need them to get strong and stable. As Dr. Gabrielle Lyon has so aptly coined, muscle is the organ of longevity. You see, we needed to build up Scott's strength first to protect his joints and to make his soft tissue healthy so that he didn't gain fat back and go backwards. The second hurdle many of my clients need to overcome, and Scott was no exception, was that they are eating far too little to support their healthy habits. Chronic dieting leads them to lower metabolic rate, and this was Scott's story to a T. Less food means less variety of nutrients coming into the body. Less nutrients means deficiencies that will continue to create problems as the body struggles to manage on these limited resources. So, after we assessed Scott's pain, we spent a significant number of months focused on getting Scott strong and slowly increasing what he was eating. Throughout this process, three things happened. One, he got stronger on all of his core lifts. Two, he improved his overall health by consistently eating more to support his body's needs. And three, he changed his physique. If you look at the weight chart, and I've posted this on several social media platforms so you can see what this looks like, but if you look at the weight chart, you'll see some ups and downs during this time because Scott gained muscle while he lost fat. Gravity pulling him down changed its compound. More muscle meant he was in better shape, causing a friend of his that he hadn't seen in months to exclaim, "Wow, you're jacked." Fat loss came and showed more of that muscle off. But his weight didn't move that much, and this is pretty common. This is an important point that I want to pause on for a moment because many of you are wanting to look and feel better, and you're going to run into these same situations, and you need to understand what Scott now knows. Number one, weight is just gravity's pull. Two, a pound is a pound, and that only tells you how much gravity is pulling on you. And three, a pound of fat has more size and volume than a pound of muscle. This is what most people mean, or at least they think they mean, when they say that a pound of muscle weighs more than fat. But a pound of muscle is different than a pound of fat. Muscle tissue is leaner and smaller, while fat takes up more space. So yes, a pound of muscle and a pound of fat weigh the same, but they don't take up the same amount of space. So while Scott's weight stayed stable, the changes to his physique were undeniable. Along the way, he got stronger and can now, for the first time in his life, do pull-ups. Once we achieved the goals of the strength phase, we went into a strategic plan that combined a caloric deficit with break periods from time to time that helped him to drop fat and maintain his muscle mass. Fast forward, and he is down over 40 pounds on the scale. Now, I know in our Ozempic culture right now, 40 pounds may not seem like a lot, but I want to go back to what I just said. Once we achieved the goals of the strength phase, we went into a strategic plan that combined a caloric deficit with break periods from time to time to help him drop fat while maintaining his muscle. When you look at the people who are losing weight on GLP-1 inhibitors, they are losing a significant amount of weight, some of which comes from fat and some of which comes from lean muscle. Now, the scope of this exercise or this episode won't go into the ravages that happen when you lose lean muscle, but trust me when I say that's the first thing you don't want to lose, and one of the reasons why I never recommend people go on Ozempic or anything of the like. Now, remember, we built muscle along the way with Scott, so you can imagine that the man reflecting in the mirror now is not the same as when we started. What changed and what's different, and why am I highlighting Scott as an evolved man? Well, here are some observations from my point of view that may be helpful for you as well. Number one, he eats based on his nutrition archetype, which we'll get into a little bit later in this show, but he says he, quote, never felt like he was on a diet. In fact, he continues, I haven't had to give up on any food that I love. I haven't had to limit the way I interact with my creative and connection archetypes to help achieve the physical changes. I know my body so much better now than I ever have, and I know how to keep it sustainable. Number two, Scott focuses on getting and staying strong. This is an important piece that we're missing in our Ozempic crazed society. Number three, he doesn't skip his hygiene. Now, you may ask, why does Scott brushing his teeth matter? Well, that's not the hygiene I'm talking about. You see, in my Evolve method, all of my clients have specific movement hygiene that's designed to help correct imbalances, keep tissue healthy, and correct postural and movement faults. Think about staying healthier, moving better, longer. And fourth, finally, Scott continues to stay accountable and take feedback and coaching well. Scott is a highly educated, successful business owner, and he has never gotten to the point where he skips out on the accountability and doesn't take feedback well. He is the king of taking appropriate feedback and applying it to test it, try it, and continue to iterate. He says his health and his fitness is an integral part of his life, his leadership, and his capacity to love others, and consistently continues to evolve. In Ever Evolving, I want to just introduce you to some of the things that I'm doing to try to continually evolve. Now, one of the most important things that I did this year was I focused on not setting New Year's resolutions. Now, I didn't do it because statistically speaking, most people set resolutions and can't keep them longer than about 2 to 3 weeks. I'm fairly consistent with my goals and the execution of my goals. I didn't set resolutions because I'm already on my path towards my goals. And I had a new theory, I had a new idea, I had a new concept that I wanted to test out and try. So what was that theory? Well, the theory was that what if I added a few tools to my repertoire, and what if I raised the bar and increased the standards with which I was living? Now, adding a few tools and raising the bar or improving some of my standards, I theorized, would make a significant change over time. So instead of setting New Year's resolutions, my wife and I went deep on a couple of areas. Now, these areas were areas that we both felt like we had down pretty good, but also saw some opportunity for improvement. Now, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't have goals, so I want to be clear about this. If you have resolutions or if you have goals, I would say continue to do those things. But I would say that setting different standards and having tools and resources that you've done, or excuse me, that are in your tool bank, can be one of the best things that you can do to continually achieve what you want to achieve. So, what were those higher standards and what were some of the tools that we utilized? So instead of the regular resolutions, we decided that it was time to upgrade the bedroom. So we went out, bought a new mattress, got an air purifier, and tested out a few different things that helped us to get better sleep. I'm happy to report that through some of these upgrades, I've increased my deep sleep on average by double and sometimes even triple the amount of time that I'm spending in deep sleep each night. Sometime last year, my son downloaded an app that he started to use to look at how some of the harmful chemicals that are in our hair and skin products were affecting him. It became lovingly known and coined by my wife as Johnny's app. One of the things that we did to upgrade is as we went into the new year, we started to look at what were we putting on our body instead of just what we were putting in our body. And so we used the aforementioned, lovingly nicknamed Johnny's app to scan every product that we had in our bathroom. By scanning those products, we identified the things that we wanted to get rid of. We dumped a lot of our hair and skin products and then ultimately went out shopping. We hit about 4 or 5 different grocery stores, scanned several products, and replaced many of our go-to products for hair and skin with products that were rated much higher. They had less preservatives, less harmful chemicals, and I'm happy to report that about a month and a half in, both my wife and I feel significantly better. Now, yes, the skin and hair have protective layers and protective barriers to them. That's the purpose of skin and hair, is to protect us from toxic chemicals and other problems. The detoxification process that happens inside of the body and the blocking that happens with our microbiome that lives on our skin is extremely important. But I will say one of the most important things that we can do is be conscious of the things that we put on our body and what seeps into our body. By using Johnny's app, and that's actually not the name of it, we have made some significant changes and upgrades to what we're putting on our body, and we feel a lot healthier overall. Now, we did a couple of other things as well. This one sits slightly outside of the standards or the tools, but I've learned that growing up in Utah, there were periods of time where when the sun disappeared for several months or for several weeks at a time, I just would get into those winter blues. And statistically speaking, it's a very common thing, especially in a place like Utah where air is not as prevalent. We live much higher than sea level, and that contributes to mental health challenges. And you block the sun out for weeks at a time, and it's a perfect recipe for seasonal affectiveness disorder or SAD. Now, I just thought that this was a pretty normal thing, and there's nothing that you can do about it until I started looking a little bit deeper. Now, one of the things that we decided was that we were going to take a trip. We were going to plan our vacation right after the new year to go to Mexico to sit on the beach, get some vitamin D, plan the business, and just simply relax. Those 3 days that we had in Mexico, laying on the beach, getting vitamin D, planning the business, and relaxing, made a significant impact on our overall health. Summer vacations are wonderful, but a quick weekend trip to Mexico in the middle of the winter, I would highly recommend it. Now, on to some of the tools that we added to help us to live healthy. I don't know why I waited so long, but one of the most impactful tools that we bought right after the first of the year was an air fryer. This has become the convenience changer of our life. We can cook food faster with less fat and in a much, much, much more condensed way with this air fryer. It was also time to change out the knives in the kitchen. And you might be thinking, how does that affect you? Well, one thing that I will tell you as we get deeper into the archetypes is that I am, by nature, a very creative person, which leans into being a creative archetype. The creation of food means, or excuse me, the creation of food as a creative archetype means that I love having the right tools. And my chef's knife is pretty old. I've been using the same chef knife that was given to me by an old friend for years and years. This knife probably should have been thrown away several years ago, but after my friend passed away, I just didn't have the heart to set it aside. It was time for an upgrade. We got a set of knives that makes it more enjoyable to be in the kitchen. And by the way, I bought a better coffee grinder. This coffee grinder looks beautiful on the counter and helps me to get my coffee made quicker. By making these small shifts and raising the standard of what we put on our body, we've seen a pretty significant boost in overall energy. Now, what am I working on through this new year? In addition to shifting the New Year resolution to raising standards and adding a few tools, I've also got some goals that I'm going after. And this is where the Two Focus Challenge comes in. I want to invite you to join me and my clients on the Two Focus Challenge. The Two Focus Challenge is essentially by having one goal that you're setting and trying to accomplish for this year, while also having one commitment to play on the weekends. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're like my client Scott, who came to me and after hearing about the Two Focus Challenge, said to me, "Hey, I know so and so, your other client, and he's been doing this thing called the Spartan race now for a few years." That sounds like something that is the opposite of what I'd want to do, which is exactly why that's now my goal. So we're training Scott for a Spartan race to do it his first time. That's his major goal that we're chasing this year. Part of the play that he's committed to over the year is to get out and hike and spend more time in nature. He loves spending time in nature, and getting out and hiking is a massive, massive investment in his overall health, spiritual, mental, and overall physical wellness. Now, my Two Focus Challenge really comes down to picking one major goal and something that you're going to play with over the week on the weekends. Why the weekends? We tend to be a little more creative. We tend to have a little bit more time on the weekends, and I want you to learn how to play. So, what's mine? Well, my primary goal this year is to get lean. Now, Steve, you're a pretty lean guy, you may be saying. Why is your goal to get lean? Well, for the past several months, I've spent time in a caloric surplus with the effort of trying to improve my overall body fat. Or excuse me, keep my body fat in check while trying to improve my strength and my overall muscle size while not letting my body fat get too bad. So I'm at a point now where I felt like that the surplus was adequate enough. I was able to put on enough muscle that made me feel comfortable, and I've been able to achieve some of the strength goals that I wanted to. So my primary goal this year is now to get lean and see what it is that I've built. Now, I have a secondary goal that I'm kind of bolting onto that. As some of you know, last year I took some time off of heavy training because I had a hernia. I had to go in for surgery, and that affected how I trained. Coming out of that hernia, I noticed that there was a pretty significant imbalance between my left leg and right leg, my left hip and my right hip. And so for the entire year of 2025, I'm committing to one leg, single leg type training until I can get my body back to a stronger and more stable level. So goal, get cut. Second, bolt-on goal is train with one leg until I achieve better symmetry. So what's my play? Well, I started to think about this late into 2024. And I said, hey, I think it would be pretty cool if at some point when I have grandkids, grandpa could do things that other grandpas can't do. So I'm about a year and a half away from my 50th birthday, and I decided that I wanted to become better at calisthenics and gymnastics. This is an area that I haven't played with very much. So I would love to be able to do human flag, front lever, back lever, a planche, several of these gymnastics moves and calisthenic skills that I've never been able to do. So my play is to play with these moves. Now, I can tell you, I'm a few months into this and I am loving the failure. I love trying something and failing miserably. And then one day, after some of my greatest failures, being able to get this new move. I'm doing this for several reasons. As I mentioned before, I want to be that grandpa. But I also read a study several years back that said that one of the best things that you can do to stave off Alzheimer's and dementia is continue to learn complicated movement patterns throughout life. And this is my mental practice. By playing with calisthenics and gymnastics, this is going to help me to learn new complicated movement patterns and help to enhance my overall mental focus. Now, finally, one of the things that I wanted to cover in Ever Evolving was just a question. This last year, as we've shifted the business to more and more coaching online. In fact, I've got clients that live overseas. I've got clients throughout the United States, from Hong Kong to wherever, right? There's a strange world of social media that has come to light that I had not experienced before. We're running ads to bring more people in and to introduce them to the Evolve method and to the method that we're going to introduce you to today, the nutrition archetype. The interesting thing that I'm seeing as we're putting ads out there is how quickly people jump on and start to criticize and are virulent and just quite frankly mean and rude with anything that we put out there or anything that we post. Now, I know that we can be fairly divided in opinions, and I know that nutrition is probably a hotter topic than politics or religion. But it's just blown me away at the trolling and the negativity that can be out there. Now, there's a significant amount of positivity, and the people who are jumping on board with us to follow the Evolve method and eat with their nutrition archetype are seeing some amazing changes. But I've been shocked. What is it that has taken us as a world and turned us into trolls, where we jump online and start to criticize and negatively comment on other people's posts? Fascinating to me, and it's more of a question than anything else. I know that you, as a listener, don't do that. I know that you, as a listener, have a much higher caliber and a much higher quality thought process. And that's why I'm asking the question. Why are we in this state, and what can we do to lead and to get out of that? I believe that as we evolve as human beings, we evolve away from consistent, constant criticism of others, and we evolve towards healthy discussion and debate when needed, but over time, or overall, that we just have a more supportive base to who we are. In evidence-based, I am probably going to upset a few of you. The Huberman bros may not like this particular segment because I'm going to tell you that your sleep setup doesn't need to be as complicated as what you might think in order to make an impact. Now, don't get me wrong. I love what Andrew Huberman does. I think his podcast is phenomenal. And Huberman bros are the ultimate DIYers of their overall health and fitness. And I think that that's wonderful. But starting simple and iterating can deliver profound results over time. So for this segment, I want to talk about one reason why you need to get better sleep and one thing you can test to see if it's effective and as effective for you as it has been for me, as well as a couple of times when, quite frankly, I break my own rules and I put supplements before lifestyle changes. First, let's talk about how you can start simple and test over time rather than sitting down and creating this ultimate list of your overall hygiene, the sleep supplements that you need to take, and this essentially part-time or maybe even full-time job of getting yourself set up for sleep. Let's just start small. Here's what I want you to do. Start by measuring your baseline sleep. If you have a health or fitness tracker like Whoop or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, Wear it and track 3 nights of sleep. Just get the basics down. Understand what your deep sleep is, your core sleep, understand what your recovery looks like, but primarily understand from deep sleep, core sleep, and REM sleep, where are you? How long are you staying in each one of those areas? Second, try a new strategy for 2 to 3 weeks. Change one thing for 2 to 3 weeks and then come back and track 3 nights again. Look at the changes. Now, as an addition, you may want to make some notes in your daily planning or your journal to track your restfulness and your energy and mental acuity. If you just start small and simple, test one thing at a time, I guarantee you're going to figure out what works specifically for you to get into deeper, more restful sleep. Now, I'm not here to tell you that everybody needs to sleep 8 hours a night. That's not a doable thing for many of you listening to the podcast. You're busy, you're running a company, you are dealing with many responsibilities as a father, a husband, and long sleep, 8 to 9, 10 hours, just isn't in the cards. What you can do is test things to get into deeper sleep. And I would challenge you that if you get into deeper sleep more on a regularly, and you can do it longer, your overall recovery is going to improve. Now, here's a reason why. There's research linking poor sleep to reduced glucose metabolism in the brain, which leads to decreased cognition. And I'll put a couple of these studies in the show notes so you can read it if you're interested. Poor sleep quality has been associated with decreased glucose metabolism in specific brain regions, which can impair cognitive function. There was a study published in Sleep that found that sleep deprivation can lead to significant decreases in glucose metabolism in the frontal cortex, the thalamus, and the striatum. These are areas that are crucial for cognitive processing. Furthermore, research indicates that poor sleep is negatively associated with brain glucose metabolism in the, and I'm going to say this wrong because I am not a neuroscientist, precuneus, posterior cingulate, and thalamus. These findings suggest that inadequate sleep can impair cognitive function by reducing the brain's overall energy supply. So, if you're running into brain fog, you're having a hard time being creative, or you just simply feel like you're running on poor fuel, it's time to get some extra sleep. Now, one of the things that I tested early this year to see if it would help came from research that I read late in 2024. Some studies have shown that enhancing bedroom ventilation can lead to better quality sleep. Improved airflow can reduce carbon dioxide levels and enhance thermal comfort, contributing to a deeper and a more efficient sleep. For instance, a study published in the Journal of Physiological Anthropology found that increased airflow helped maintain sleep quality and thermal comfort in elderly participants, even under heat stress conditions. Additionally, research in Technical University of Denmark indicates that sleeping in a well-ventilated room can improve next-day performance. The study suggested that poor air quality in the bedroom negatively affects sleep, leading to decreased cognitive function at the following day. So one of the things that I've added, as I mentioned in the ever-evolving segment, is an air purifier and a blower. Now, when we go to bed at night, we have the air purifier going to help to clean the air of any pollen or any toxins, anything that's in the air that might aggravate us. We've also added an air flow machine that blows and rotates and oscillates throughout the night. I was shocked 3 days in when I looked at my stats and saw double and often triple the amount of deep sleep that I was having. Now I'm about 2.5 weeks in, and even on poor nights, I'm doing better than I was before adding the air purifier and the air blower into the room. Even on those poor nights, I'm waking up feeling significantly better than I was prior to adding that. Now, what do I mean when I say that sometimes I break my own rules? I'm not a big fan of putting supplements ahead of lifestyle changes, and here's why. I believe supplements are supplementary to an overall good lifestyle. I think that if you want to have strong health over time, you need to develop small, simple habits that can iterate and help you to compound the powerful effects that these habits have in the long run. Now, I break my own rules when it comes to supplements when relative to sleep. If your sleep is poor, the number one thing that we need to do is enhance your ability to sleep and to sleep deeply. So, if I can get you to sleep quicker and I can help you to get deeper sleep, I'm going to break my rule and I'm going to put supplements ahead of the game. Here's where I start, typically with a lot of my clients and myself, quite frankly. First is magnesium. Magnesium is a has several benefits, but it's also a precursor to GABA, which is a neurotransmitter, or to be more accurate, a neurotransmitter inhibitor that essentially helps your brain to shut down. So if you are the type of person that has a hard time turning your brain off at night and getting great sleep, you need more GABA. GABA can be produced in the brain by increasing your magnesium intake. And sometimes I find that with clients, just supplementing with magnesium can start to calm their brain down so that they can get to sleep faster and get into a deeper sleep. Now, if you're like me, you are the type of person who when you get stuck on an idea, you can't shut it down for a long period of time. And so magnesium alone may not be enough. So I will often add GABA as a supplement in addition to the magnesium. Magnesium and the different types that you can take work on a few different pathways. And so supplementing directly with GABA can also be beneficial. The third time where I'll break the rule and I'll add a supplement is by adding valerian root. Valerian root is simply a calming agent that is very, very beneficial to help your overall body and your nervous system to calm down. Now, remember, with all things, I am not recommending that you go take these. I'm giving you some examples of some small things to try. Start small, and as always, consult with a qualified medical professional before you're starting any supplement protocol, especially if you're on medication, to make sure that you don't have any negative interactions and side effects. In our cover story today, I want to introduce you to the only proven way to lose fat and keep it off. Now, before we get into the strategy, let's be clear on what science and really no one in the science community will argue with. And yes, I mean no one in the science community, not the fitness or supplement industry, because those industries are built around trying to sell you something that, quite frankly, you probably don't need. If you want to lose weight, you need to be in a caloric deficit. Eating clean, eating keto, carnivore, the Mediterranean diet, following intermittent fasting protocol, they all work for weight loss if you're in a caloric deficit. Now, if you want to lose fat but preserve and or build muscle, you need to be in a caloric deficit, preferably a very slight deficit, and you need to prioritize protein intake while also strength training. One of the basic concepts that I need all of my clients to understand is that there are priorities when it comes to creating the body that they want. And I do mean priorities. That means that first things need to be first. The first priority that we always talk about is managing the lifestyle inputs. This includes, but it's not limited to, your exercise, your skill with exercise, overall movement and activity throughout the day, your sleep, stress management, brain health, mental health, and mindfulness practices, and your relationships and your spiritual rituals. Now, we won't be diving too deep into those topics today, but if you want me to go deeper in future episodes on why we start here, let me know, and we'll talk a little bit about not only why that's important, but how do you start to get a hold of your life so that you can move up the chain from there. Now, If you don't want to wait, you can also get access to our full 16-week nutrition course where I walk you through all of the steps to never to dieting again, and we cover each of those topics in detail. If you're interested, ping me and I'll get you access to a link that will help you, or excuse me, that will get you to our 16-week course and get you well on your way to evolving. Now, as to addressing lifestyle, we need to ensure that you're in a slight caloric deficit if you want to lose weight, maintain calories, if you want to lose weight. Now, we maintain calories if you want to keep your weight stable, or we want to increase calories slightly if you want to gain muscle. Following caloric intake, we need to balance out your macronutrients, protein for muscle and other soft tissue health, and fats and carbohydrates essentially for energy and hormonal regulation. And that's it. That's the basis when it comes to body composition. So think muscle and fat change. Lifestyle, caloric intake, and balance of macronutrients. Now, as we move through the priorities and we start to talk a little bit more about your health and performance, we dig into priorities 4 through 6, which are as follows: micronutrient balance, meal timing strategies, and supplementation. Now, I'm here to tell you, regardless of what supplement Sam tells you or OMAD Ollie is trying to sell you, eating one meal a day, meal timing strategy, is not magical. It essentially just gets you into a caloric deficit. Taking a supplement will not help you burn body fat faster. If you don't address lifestyle, caloric balance, and macronutrients, you will not change your body composition. Now, if you want better health and performance, you probably should focus on your micronutrients, your meal timing, and your supplementation only after you've addressed the first 3 priorities. Now you know the physiological basics. Let's dive into the number one thing that makes the biggest difference. Every person who has been able to get in and stay in great shape has done this one thing. It's the foundation for longevity relative to your habits and is a key to sustainable growth. And that key is understanding your unique psychosocial emotional makeup. Let me explain. Recently, one of my good friends, the creator and host of the wildly successful Boundless Body Radio, Casey Ruff, posted something that really got me thinking. Now, Casey's been carnivore for, I believe, about 7 years now. And while carnivore isn't a particularly effective eating strategy long-term for many people, because frankly, people love eating carbs, we always have, right? In fact, in my interview with a man who is probably the most well-studied and well-written expert in the field of food culture and history, Dr. Ken Albala, he shared with me that we've always been omnivores, meaning that we've always eaten a mixture of meats and vegetables. And if you want to hear my full conversation with Dr. Albala, jump over to episode 170 after you finish with this one. Carnivore has been a lifestyle, though, that has worked great for Casey because it fits his unique psychosocial emotional makeup. Now, I don't think Casey has taken my nutrition archetype quiz, but knowing him and knowing why he does carnivore, I would say that Casey is probably a communication convenience archetype. And we'll get into what that means a little bit later, but the point is, he's found a lifestyle that matches the way he wants to interact with food. His psychology, which we define as thoughts and behaviors, his social structure, and his emotional makeup function really well with this simple system like carnivore. So why do I make a bold claim like the only way you're going to get results is by knowing this one thing? Well, because after having spent 25 years reading, coaching, observing, and being in the trenches, I've observed the one common thread amongst all successful people. They eat and interact with food in a way that matches up with their own unique psychosocial emotional model, or, as I like to call it, your own nutrition archetype. But Steve, you may say, didn't you just come up with the archetypes? How can you make that claim when people have been successful for years, for decades? And that, my friends, is where the question is the answer. You see, early in my career, I studied how people become successful in physical endeavors. This included working for the University of Utah, doing athletic testing on both college and Olympic athletes, in addition to the general population. I participated in assisting and facilitating and analyzing research that my professors were doing at the University of Utah. Coaching athletes that ranged from middle school through college and professional and Olympic athletes and competitors. I learned a significant amount of information, or I gathered a significant amount of information relative to performance and how they ate and interacted with food. I also worked with and studied under two Mr. Olympias and the most successful natural Mr. Olympia, natural bodybuilder of all time. Over the past 25 years, I observed what worked for my personal training clients and now my online performance clients. I reviewed and observed case studies and files of clients from my personal trainer. I've had roughly 250 or more work for me over the years. What worked for them, for their multiple clients, and then also what worked for the clients who would come in for the metabolic and food allergy tests that we did as well. And finally, I've read several scientific journals, research, and stories of successful athletes and weekend warriors. All of this observation brought me to one conclusion. Every person who was successful with their body found what worked for them, not just physiologically, but psychologically. It was the one string that tied the most successful people together. It was the one thing that linked the vegan to the carnivore, 6 meal a day bodybuilder to the OMAD, or 1 meal a day intermittent faster. Now, when you understand your psychology, your social structure, and how you're wired to emotionally interact with food, drink, and eating situations, you start to on a path of mastery of your body in a way that feels like a revolution, which leads to an evolution. You no longer try to stick to one particular diet because you've learned how to eat, drink, and interact with food in a way that works for you. Now, if you want to read more research, I'm going to link 5 studies that help to support this theory. But here's my challenge to you. I want you to take the quiz and just start working with yourself and not trying to cram another square peg into a round hole or vice versa. Check out the show notes, though, if you want to read and understand a little bit more about why this archetype theory is so effective. Now, if you listen to the Evolved Man profile earlier in this episode, you got some insights into my client Scott, who's a creative connector archetype. As we've gone through the process of helping Scott reach his health and fitness goals, we made sure to start by ensuring he had everything he needed in order to achieve his goals as a creative connector. We applied principles of deficit, maintenance, and surplus, and a variety of tactics to help him to get leaner body fat percentage without going against his basic psychosocial emotional makeup. Now, before we dive deeper into the archetypes and what they are, let's discuss why they're important. You've probably at some point in your career been subjected to tests to determine your unique makeup that helped you to become a better leader. Whether you took an Enneagram or a Myers-Briggs, you learn that you have a specific, unique makeup that describes how you process information, execute strategy, and work with others. The models or archetypes give you a framework that work with you and make your leadership and management better. The nutrition archetypes are the same. Instead of trying to figure out if a specific diet created by someone trying to sell you a book, a supplement program, or the like is right for you, the archetypes give you a bedrock to stand on to begin your journey from. Once you understand your basic archetype, you'll understand why specific diets don't work, what will work, and how you can adjust or adopt certain things to craft a plan that's effective for you. So, after years of observation, I've found that there are 6 basic archetypes or ways that we interact with food. The archetypes are culture, comfort, creative, connection, convenience, and communication. Now, each archetype has a unique way of interacting with food and related situations. Now, for the purposes of this episode, I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of each archetype as well as what I call functional and dysfunctional expressions of each archetype. If you want me to go dive deeper into each one, please let me know, and we can craft some future episodes diving into each. First up is culture. Culture archetypes are defined by their strong pull to create and be a part of something bigger. Culture archetypes have found food as a staple in family, community, and religious gatherings. Whether it's the morning Turkish coffee ritual with your spouse or making Nona's famous fresh pasta, culture archetypes learned how to interact with food through family, community, and those that are closest to them. Culture archetypes rarely do well on branded diets. Think keto, carnivore, clean, South Beach, etc., because they don't fit into the core definition of food for them. For this archetype, culture and food are tied together. Culture archetypes eat and drink to connect with community, and the idea of giving up mom's famous Chicago chocolate cake on Jimmy's birthday is unthinkable. To be successful in achieving health and fitness goals, culture archetypes need to ensure that the key culture connections are included in life. Next up is the comfort archetype. This is my favorite mug, is a refrain that you'll hear from a comfort archetype. Comfort archetypes are most closely tied to the emotions, feelings, and sensations of eating and drinking. They may consider the weight of the fork, the heft of the coffee mug, or the sensation of the fat and sugar slipping down towards the stomach. Comfort archetypes are the go-tos when you have a bad day and you just need a little chocolate from their private stash. Comfort archetypes can be known as excellent bakers or creators of comfort or soul food. And eat until you feel better is the mantra of the comfort archetype. Comfort archetypes have specific go-tos after a bad day or a signature drink that they sip on after a long week. Comfort archetypes struggle the most with conventional diets because, quote, experts tell them that they are eating, quote, bad foods. Now, third on the list is the creative archetype. You Picassos, you Warhols, you Massimo Botturas. The creative archetype can never get enough of new. Whether starting a meal by thinking of a color or a texture or simply looking for the newest restaurant in the city to go to, creative archetypes are always looking for ways to push the creative window. Creative archetypes live by the mantra that you eat with your eyes first and are offended by the idea that paper plates and plastic forks are being used. The creative archetype may or may not admit to how many cookbooks they own. Creative archetype sees each meal, especially with family and friends, as a beautiful self-expression. Creative archetypes struggle to stick to a specific diet because diets are built to be bland and boring. Flavor is the spice of life for a creative archetype, and they refuse to eat the chicken, broccoli, and potato the dietitian recommended. How boring. Next up is the connection archetype. I'm going to go grab a coffee. You want to join? The connection archetype was who writers had in mind when they wrote about breaking bread together. Whether it's lunches with friends or dinners with family, connection archetypes use mealtime as a time to talk, listen, teach, and connect. Business lunch? Sure. Dinner and drinks to close the deal? Even better. Connection archetypes are those hosting friends for dinners or inviting loved ones out for brunch. I heard of a new restaurant downtown. Want to go? Is a common tone of a connection archetype. Food, wine, and conversation all go hand in hand with the connecting archetype. The connection archetypes struggle with strict plans because they refuse to eat the pre-planned chicken and broccoli while others are eating pizza. Next is the convenience archetype. If you could just take a pill and not have to eat, it would be way better, is the mantra of the convenience archetype. The convenience archetype knows how long they can go before the crash and consistently pushes up to those and maybe beyond those limits. They have starred their favorite restaurants in DoorDash and eat what's available and quick because they're too busy to think about it. Handheld is better than a fork and knife with this archetype. If you want to torture a convenience archetype, invite them to a long meal at a Michelin star restaurant. Convenience archetypes run into health issues or excessive body fat and fat gain because they don't control 90% of what goes into their bodies. Convenience archetypes struggle to make health and fitness challenges because they have difficulty tracking and making intentional changes. And finally is the communication archetype. Communication archetypes are driven to be better. The communication archetype's primary concern is change and growth. The communication archetype has tried it all: supplements, teas, counting calories, macros, etc., in an effort to improve health and achieve a better body. Communication archetypes aren't called communication archetypes because they like to talk when they eat, but they're eating to communicate a different results. The primary goals of a communication archetype are to look better, feel better, and live longer and better than your neighbor. Communication archetypes typically do well on diets because they've learned what it will take to get a great results. Again, they are trying to eat to communicate something. They eat the food that has the higher antioxidants because they're trying to communicate better health to their body. They eat more protein because they're trying to communicate the signals for building muscle. Communication archetypes eat and drink to feel better, to live better, and to look better. They eat whole foods by single origin coffee, drink purified water, and try to communicate to their body that they want a specific result. Communication archetypes struggle to find a healthy balance with food and eating for fun in social situations, and often an unbalanced communication archetype puts the wrong things first. Now, remember how I told you at the beginning about my friend Casey, and why do I think he's a communication convenience archetype? Well, he wants great health and performance. He wants to live a life that's congruent with his health and fitness goals and eats to communicate that result to his body. He also wants it to be simple. Casey is a simple, not simplistic, but simple in his approach to health and fitness. This is the hallmark of a convenience archetype. In fact, in his recent post that I referenced earlier, he mentioned that one of the biggest lessons he's learned through the journey of being carnivore is that he doesn't really like to cook and think about cooking. Now, this is a stark contrast to my client Scott, who loves the creative pursuit of cooking and crafting beautiful sensory-rich experiences for those he loves. What aligns my client Scott, who has now dropped over 40 pounds and is stronger and healthier than ever, and my friend Casey, who is consistently healthy and fit, is that they both eat and live relative to their unique psychosocial emotional makeup. Now, I'm curious, what's yours? What is your nutrition archetype? If you've taken the test, send me a comment and let me know what your insights are that you've found. If you haven't, take the 6 minutes it takes to go through the test and send me a note. What did you learn? What are you doing right now that goes against your archetype and is creating more mental gymnastics than you need? What are you intuitively doing right now that aligns with your archetype? Are you sick of bouncing from one diet to the next, to be told by one expert one thing and another expert something completely different? Do you want to figure out how to finally get in and stay in great shape? I've got an answer for you, my friends. Take the nutrition archetype quiz. This isn't another diet. This isn't another protocol that you're going to have to list out 50 different things that you're going to do. The nutrition archetype quiz is going to help you to understand how you're wired to interact with food. Your psychology, your social structure, and your emotional makeup are all taken into account when we look at your nutrition archetype. Take the quiz. It'll take you 6 minutes or less. And at the end of it, you'll understand why you failed on diets in the past and what you can do to make sure that you're successful in the future. Well, there you have it, folks. We are at the end of another session together. If you found this episode helpful, please pass it along. As I mentioned before, we grow faster by your shares than by anything else. Subscribe to us on your favorite platform, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube and all other social platforms. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Evolved Man. If you're learning from and gaining value from this podcast, please subscribe to the Evolved Man newsletter, where I can support you even more in your evolution. I want to help you reverse engineer your success. The Evolved Man newsletter is like getting a free coaching session with me every week to keep you moving forward on your path to personal success. Go to theevolvedmanpodcast.com to sign up today. If you found value in this episode, you can give us up to a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify and share it with your network. That's the best way to support the podcast so we can continue to get on great guests and provide you this amazing free content. Until next time, keep evolving.